We have been focusing on the newcomer experience this entire financial literacy month. It is such an important demographic. There is so much for newcomers to learn as they integrate into our country. And today, we're going to talk to two relative newcomers to Canada. Carolina Restrepo and Juan Cala immigrated to Canada from Colombia about 6 years ago. And one of the things they have done, in addition to sorting out their life here, is to create a platform called MundoTogether to share their experience joining Canada and learning all about life here. And they're joining us today from Kitchener, Ontario. Hello to you both.
Hello.
Hey, how are you, Bruce?
I am well. Carolina, I want to start with you. What do you remember about your very, very, very first day in Canada? Please tell me it was not in February. Please tell me you showed up in September.
Yeah, I actually arrived during August, so the weather was just perfect. And actually, the first day that I arrived, Juan took me to Niagara Falls. So it was such an incredible day for me.
Wow. Okay, that's great. Now, Juan, you were already here. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So you had a little bit more experience when it comes to the financial system and integrating with the Canadian way of doing things. What was relatively easy and what was relatively hard for you in terms of building that financial life?
I think the hardest aspect was that you're starting from scratch. You really have nothing here when you first arrive. So firstly, I didn't have a credit score. I didn't have any idea of how the credit score worked here. So understanding how to build a good credit score and being able to do it, because one thing is understanding it, and the other thing is when you first arrive and you have limited income, you have to find a way to make it work as well, and make it work in your favor so that you can actually leverage that credit score to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish when you first arrive.
What would you both say, and either of you can answer this, what would you both say you did well in establishing the credit score, and what did you do not so well? And bonus points for revealing some unbelievable mistake that you made that you have since recovered from, but will reassure others that it's kind of hard to do perfectly.
Yeah,
Carolina's I can looking at what. Okay, you're going to go first.
I can share. Yeah, I can share my experience. So when I first arrived, I remember that the bank that I joined, they gave me a credit card with a very low limit. It was like $500, and I didn't know the fact that you have to just keep your expending up to a point, and you're not supposed to use your full capacity of your credit. And I did that for several months, actually, until Juan was like, "What are you doing?" Yeah, so I did that. That was a big mistake. I did it for like, I don't know, 6 months or something like that, because it was so low. I thought like I better just use it, right? It's like normal. I didn't think that it was gonna affect my credit score. But yeah, thankfully Juan called me on that. Yeah.
Juan, do you remember either something that you did well or a mistake that you made?
I think one thing that we both did well was getting our credit card as soon as we arrived, because we started to use it right away. So we started to create that credit score. And then after 6 months or a year, I think we were able to increase that limit that we had in those credit cards. So that's something that I did really well. And I think I taught her right in that, because I was actually reading a lot of articles during that time, and I was watching videos and stuff, trying to understand how to increase our score, because again, our score was like nothing at that moment. And the one thing that I did badly, I think, also overusing my credit card at the beginning, because it's challenging at the beginning when you have a limited income and then you're trying to build a credit score, but also cover all the expenses when you first arrive. So
we have people coming to Canada from literally every country on the planet over the course of a year. What would you say are some things that you noticed culturally between Colombia and Canada as it relates to money. And it could be things like, in some countries, it is a cash-oriented culture. Canada's very much plastic. It could be things like how one talks about money at the dinner table with family. What would be some things that you noticed culturally?
I think one important thing is the cash usage. In Colombia, everyone uses cash. Actually, not too many people have credit cards. Like many people in the cities, in the large cities do, but not in the countryside of the country. As in Canada, people use credit cards for everything. Like I barely use cash anymore. I don't carry cash in my wallet anymore. And in Colombia, because you use cash all the time, people see credit cards as their enemy sometimes. Like they're scared of using their credit cards because they think they're not going to be able to pay them off, or that you're always paying interest to banks, because people don't really understand that if you pay before a certain date, you don't have to pay interest on your purchases. So I think that is a huge difference, and that took us some time to understand and interiorize while we arrived.
Now, but there's a part of that I can imagine would serve you well. The fear of using the card. A part of me is like, yeah, more of that. We need more of that. We need people to be more concerned about putting money on the credit card. Carolina, did you find that you had that? Was there some reticence that was a hangover from your upbringing in Colombia?
I think in Colombia, you're also like, whenever you use a credit card, you also pay any payment on installments. Like it doesn't matter if it is like $5, you'll put that in like 24 months installments. Like people don't actually understand. Yeah, people don't actually understand that you're gonna be paying like double of that amount if you put that for so long. But that's actually pretty common. Like in our country, I don't know, like maybe that's why they think the credit card is the enemy, because every time it's like 24 months for a super small payment.
I was gonna say that's one of the biggest difference. I had totally forgotten about that. But like every time you purchase something in Colombia, any establishment asks you like, okay, how many installments do you want to divide this purchase in? And you can go up to 48 if you want, or you can do two or three or four. And that's in every single purchase. So people
I wish our radio listeners could see my face right now, because I'm like, what? I mean, I know that installment plans are a thing, but they are so rare. They're just not a part of how Canadians who've been here for generations. It's not how we operate.
Right.
I mentioned MundoTogether. How did that idea come to be? Why did you decide to launch that?
So we wanted to help other people that had a similar project of like immigrating to a country. We first started sharing our information in English because we wanted different cultures to being able to follow us and understand everything we were saying. However, we started seeing a lot of people from Latin America and also Latin people living in Canada and the US following us. And that's why we made the switch to doing everything in Spanish, so that people could understand better everything that we were sharing. So it was mostly the idea of trying to help people that are newcomers get a better idea of what the country was about, like how everything worked, what the different challenges were going to be when they arrived, and for those that live here that don't have a lot of information on many things, that they could also understand things that we were already understanding during our process. So,
Carolina, you cover lots of different topics, and I'm sure you receive lots of different questions. As you think about the financial world, broadly defined, what would you say is that the question that is asked the most, or the topic that most resonates with your viewers, that you're like, okay, we got to do this yet again because there's such a demand for it?
Talking about financial topics, well, one of them is the first one, like how do I get my first credit card? Where do I open my first bank account? Things like that. But another current question is how to invest. Like people are looking to learn more about that topic, and I think it's actually pretty interesting. because they're like, okay, I'm here, I'm already stable, like I found a job, I found these things, I'm saving, but now I want to actually invest and like make that money grow for me. So that's actually one of the questions that we have received the most lately.
One of the dynamics that I would believe to be relevant for your platform is that because you speak in Spanish, you have people who come to Canada who may not immigrate here forever. They may not be going for permanent residency. They may be here seasonally. They may be workers who come up to work in the fruit orchards and then head back home to their home country. What are some of the differences for people who come and contribute to Canada in that way that are different from how you've chosen to be here and you've made your life here 12 months a year?
Like for those, you mean for those people that are not going to stay? Is
Temporarily.
that okay?
Yeah. I'm just wondering if there are different things, because unlike, say, someone who comes from Africa, they don't come here for a short period of time to work and go home as frequently. And maybe that's a stereotype on my part. But when we think about many Canadians who do a lot of the brutal hard work, they are often coming from Central or South American countries and they speak Spanish.
Yeah. No, that's actually, I will say the biggest difference will be that they are mostly doing that so they can send money back home. So they're actually spending less money. They're saving more because each month they're sending money home. And actually, whenever they go back to their countries, they're also expecting to have certain amount of money that they can take with them. So I'll say that's the difference, right? Whereas the ones who are looking to stay for a longer period of time, they're just like, okay, I want to do this right. I want to like take it slow, maybe not saving that much at the beginning because I know I have a lot of things that I have to spend like my money on. But yeah, I'll say that's the biggest difference.
We're seeing more and more newcomers do preparation in their home country before they get here. So it's not like they, hop on the plane, they arrive, and it's all completely new. Many of the banks are investing in programs that begin before a newcomer hops on that plane. What advice would you have to newcomers in terms of that pre-work? Because there's tons of pre-work on visas and the permanent residency, and where am I going to live and all that stuff. What pre-work is the most helpful when it comes to finances, do you think?
I think understanding how the market and the institutions work in the country where you're going. So in Canada, as an example right now. And for that, you have to learn. And for learning, you have to watch tutorials. You have to look for different resources. Like we recently partnered with Credit Canada, which they're doing an amazing job at trying to teach newcomers how to build their credit score from scratch, from the ground up. And those things are really important because they're free resources that you can find online, and you understand how everything works in this country, how to get here, how to the different tactics for increasing that score during your first year or 2 years, what the different financial institutions look at when they look at your credit score, all of those things. So the credit score and the way you manage your finances become your friend and not your enemy when you arrive. That's the thing. Yeah.
Thank you both for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Bruce. It was a pleasure to be being here with you.
Pleasure to talk to you and great to meet you. Carolina Restrepo and Juan Carla emigrated to Canada from Colombia about 6 years ago, thankfully in summer and not February.